Hello, and welcome to the Wade Borth Podcast. I'm your host, Wade Borth, and in every episode, my goal is to get you to think differently about how money works and ultimately to empower you to take control of your money and your personal financing system.
Today, we're going to be talking about why we consider ourselves a leadership development agency. So, Wade, when we're chatting with people, they say, oh, you do whole life insurance for infinite banking. You guys are a life insurance agency. I would say what we're really is a leadership development agency that sells life insurance. And there's a huge difference there.
100%. Leadership, I would say anybody can sell a product. But what's leadership?
Yeah.
What are we really trying to develop?
I heard a quote from Vince Diodana at a Truth Concepts event that I've always remembered. And he said, an average salesman will sell you based off what you think you need right now. I'm going to change his words a little bit. A leader who actually cares about you will show you a life you want to live into.
Right.
Way different conversation, right? We're not here to peddle products and sell insurance. In fact, I haven't sold a policy in years. I only educate and I show people what's possible until they have so much awareness that they say, I have to have that. And at that time, they're ready to actually move forward and become a leader in their life and do this.
Yeah. And I think this goes back to our five areas conversation. I mean, it seems like all our conversations are going to go back there.
They should.
To that. Because again, if we can show our clients how to live abundantly in all those different 5 areas, and this being in the financial world in the financial area that's going to impact the rest of the other areas, why don't they want more of it?
Right. And not just clients, right? But this is what we coach our agents on too.
Yeah.
This is our primary focus. We'd rather them become successful and abundant in all 5 of those areas than be at the leaderboard at One America.
Right.
That's an important piece, no doubt, but that's what we're really about. And when it comes down to it, I think the easiest way to describe what we're doing here for agents is we're helping them with empowerment and abundance. And we absolutely believe that we're here to show our agents how to build a big business.
Yeah.
And it's the exact opposite environment I came from. The first podcast Monty and I did, we chatted about our old agency. It's a wonderful agency. I paid a lot of money to learn, but it was I would have paid double. And I was doing it for 25% commissions, by the way.
Right.
So I think when newer agents come into the business, they're like, oh, I'm at a 60 or 70 point contract. I'm like, just so you know, I spent $10,000 in my first month to get trained. And I worked for 4 years at a 25% contract level to learn what I did.
There's a term called cost of acquisition. Maybe we'll do a separate
We're going to do one on that for sure. But it was worth it because the leadership that was there, they coached us very well. But a few things that they did not do right, which we wanted to change when we started Factum, they didn't empower us. And they didn't create an abundant community. And so we got to a point where we'd ask questions and the answer would be, you don't need to know that. If you're in an agency and that's what they're telling you, it's time to go.
Run away.
Yeah. So when we talk about empowerment, we're here to show agents how to build a really big business. And if you outgrow us, you've got to leave. We're going to help you leave, in fact.
Yeah.
We'll help you go get your own contract. If we cannot build a vision big enough to fit your vision in it, you got to go do what's best for you and your family. You got to go do your own thing. Now, we do not hold agents hostage here.
No.
Because that's how it was when I left. It was uncomfortable. It came from a place of scarcity, and we just won't do that. Right. That's not who we are.
Think about just from again, we think long term, right? So if you're thinking long term, why would you want anybody in your community that doesn't want to be there? I mean, that's the real key. And it's not that there's dislike or anything else. They're like, I want to grow and go a different direction. I want to do something else that you guys aren't doing. Again, it goes back to our vision isn't big enough to hold their vision or isn't going the right direction or whatever there might be. Then if I'm thinking long term, I'm going to say, let me help you be the best person you possibly can be. And think about that from 2 or 3 or 5 years down the road. And now they're successful. And they're going to point back and say, hey, I was talking to 3 or 4 other agents that aren't a good fit for me. But hey, Kyle, they might be a good fit for Factum.
Right.
That's the true abundance mindset, right? That's thinking long term. Because again, if you're that scarcity mindset and somebody says, hey, you don't need to learn that or you don't need to know that, I'd question that. I mean, I'd throw up a red flag and say, well, why?
Yeah.
I mean, that would be my first question. Why don't I need to learn that?
Well, and that's what we did. We got to a point where there was about 5 of us that were meeting in North Scottsdale, like once a month, just so that we could teach ourselves what we were not being taught.
Right.
And if that's where agents are at with other agencies, it's time to go.
Right.
And let me just pause right there real quick, because I would do it all over again at that same agency.
Made you who you were.
Oh my gosh, did it ever. And my old mentor passed away not too long ago, actually. And that man changed my family's financial destiny for generations. I would have paid him 10 times what I did just to go through that mentorship for 4 years. Now, it also taught me what I didn't want to build into the future, right? Because if we ever have an agent that outgrows us, the real question we should be looking at is what's wrong with our leadership? Because there's a quote by John Maxwell that I have in my office now. It says everything rises and falls on leadership.
Yep.
And if an agent has outgrown us, we failed as leaders to build something so massively enormous that we have to be able to fit 5,000 agents and their visions of abundance inside of that. And that takes a unique leadership team to do that, right? You've got to have a compensation plan that allows agents to grow and be profitable even above what their contract level allows for, which is why we have our profit share.
Yeah.
But it also means coaching and training. And I know this is a big passion of yours, Wade. Your goal is to produce hundreds of millionaire life insurance agents.
Yeah. I would love, my vision is, I think when we first met, that was like, I was waking up at night and I could see 500 producers that are all doing $1 million in the same room, right? All having a conversation about, and it was interesting. It was so vivid. It was just crazy. They were talking about how they could go and impact so many more people. And it wasn't even clients, it was other agents to bring more people into the room. So it gets away from that scarcity mindset to abundance, right? Think about that. If you have top producers thinking, how can we make this twice as big or 5 times bigger, 100 times bigger than what it is today? Those are the people you want around us, right?
Yeah.
And I think it really starts with, when you talk about leadership being able to build a big enough vision for everybody, it really starts with, I say, you said it starts with having a couple components. I say the component that we have to have out of there that we don't want there is ego. If you have an ego, it means that you've arrived. Nelson talked about the arrival syndrome. If we can just stay away from having ego, like I know what's best for everybody, then you're going to lose a lot of people because you're not building a big enough vision for people.
Yeah. You've got to be able to have that infinite thinking mindset.
Yeah.
That means other people are going to do things differently. We should encourage that. I was just at a huge Keller Williams conference. They call it Mega Camp. It's for all their mega agents. Guess how many were there?
Mega mini? I don't know.
Like 7,000.
That's crazy.
And there's these people on stage. They all followed a system and a model, which is why we have systems and models here at Factum. But they all did things slightly different at the top. Once the foundation's laid, you can afford to be creative now. Yeah. And they were all sharing these things. And do you think they were holding it back like they didn't want the other 7,000 people in the audience to see what they were doing?
No.
They put it up on like 12 huge monitors for everyone to see, and they put it in a Dropbox. They said, this is going to be available for everyone. Take it.
Wow.
Like, why doesn't our industry have that, Wade? And that's a question I've been asking myself for 2 years, and it's why we're building what we're building now.
Yeah. It's interesting. I was at a Truth Concepts training with Todd Langford, and I was sitting there having a conversation with Todd over dinner one night, and I made the point. I said, man, I love that we're also sharing. I mean, because you go there, everybody's, here's what I've tried, here's my failures, here's my successes. It was just, and this is during a software training class. So plug for Todd, truthconcepts.com is one of my favorite places to go to events, just not Houston in August. But the point being is that I made that comment to Todd, and he looked at me and says, really, you think our industry is that way? He says, I disagree with that. I said, maybe this community, this group of people is that way, but the majority of the industry is not. I'm like, well, you're probably right. I've just surrounded myself with so many people that from our industry that are like that I just assume that's what the whole industry is like. Until he kind of like brought me back. Think about the people that you don't let into your community, or into your, into your realm. There's a lot of people out there that are, say a lot of people. There's just people out there that want to hold on to what they have and think that they've created it. I'm a firm believer that I don't have an original thought in this world. I've never had an original thought in this world. God put all these visions and thoughts in our minds, and so it's not my thoughts, it's his thoughts. And quite frankly, everything I've ever written down, I've seen somewhere else, or somebody else has inspired it.
Absolutely. We need to embrace that.
Yeah, and share it with somebody else so they can take it and make it even better.
All the courses that I've built have been built because of mentors I had, books I read, courses I purchased, and truth concepts.
Yeah.
It became I just curated it into my own messaging. Once I had the models and systems down, I got very creative with my messaging, and that's why I have the product I have today. But our leadership team continues to innovate that every single day. It's always changing. It's always being upgraded. But it's one of the things I love about our values here is it's so abundantly focused that we'll give it to anyone. It's on our website.
Right.
Go through our website. It's free. We don't even charge for it. Just go get the information. We want it to be out there. If you're an agent and you're ready to go to the next level, you've got to go to a Truth Concepts training with Todd Langford and Kim Butler, some of the best minds in our business. We go every year.
Yeah.
Sometimes I go twice a year.
Todd gives me a hard time. He has a special seat just for me because I've been there so often. So the golden seat.
Okay, but here's the thing. The best agents that I know in this business have all been like 12 times.
Yeah.
I think I'm on like 4 or 5.
Yeah.
And there's an interesting thing about that because that's the compound effect. What I learned the first 4 to 5 times coming, it's great. But I only use 30% of those calculators. You know, when I go times 6 through 12, I'm a way different person in that journey than I was the first 4 or 5 years of this journey.
Yeah. I was lost the first 4 or 5 times I went. At least I look back. I learned a lot, but I look back now, I'm like, man, I was just lost. And then as I heard it and I seen it, and quite frankly, the reason I go anymore is the relationships that we have that I build with other agents that are there.
Yeah.
It's the conversation.
It's the community.
It's the community. It's the conversations I have with other agents that are there. I learned so much, and it's not about software. It's about business practices or just how you're running or, you know, what's going on in your life. Some people, it's interesting now because you go often enough that your community is like the only time I see certain people is the time I go to Truth Concepts
or the Infinite Banking think tank
or the think tank or whatever it might be.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the communities you build, and you get so excited about those relationships. That's why you go there. It's not for the content, because you could watch video of the content all day long. It's online.
So let's go back to why this factors into our leadership development agency.
Yeah.
Because what you just described is why we believe that relationships are the most important part of those 5 areas. So if you're not leading a life that's creating abundance in those 5 areas, the question that I would ask, and it's the question that Steve Chater always asks us, if you're not leading your life, who is?
Great question.
So you got to be intentional. And this is why one of our guiding principles is intentional growth. You got to be intentional to go to things like Truth Concepts, to the Nelson Nash Institute, because the people that are there and the relationships are built, that's where all the power really is in those relationships. Yeah.
Because again, I just signed up to go to Circle of Wealth in January. And it's one of those things where it's been a while. It's been 4 years since I've been there, and I've missed those relationships. And I was actually I called a couple of people to make sure they were going before I signed up, just to make sure they were there. So it's not like it's any one thing. It's just growing yourself and growing those relationships in a lot of different areas, right? So it's Truth Concepts, Circle of Wealth, symposiums, leader conference. That's what makes this business so much fun, is those relationships, because you get to see people. Maybe you only see them once a year, but it's so enlightening to have them there.
Yeah.
And in part of that leadership that we talk about is having a message, right? So best part about leadership is to help people nurture and empower them to grow their own. I use a garden. I'm a farm boy from North Dakota, so I take everything back to agriculture. But, if we have a garden, part of the leadership is empowering them to nurture and blossom and grow that plant or that seed that they want to grow. Mm-hmm. My job sometimes is just to eliminate the weeds. Let's get rid of the noise that's out there so you can grow and nurture in that you want to grow in. So I see that as one of my skills that I have with people. Let's eliminate the noise and let's get rid of the weeds that are in your garden. So what you're trying to grow is going to be the biggest and best that it can possibly be.
Yeah.
And that's empowerment.
That's empowerment. There's no scarcity. And so when we set out to build Factum, we knew we had to think really big. And it's got to be so big that it can fit every one of those 5,000 agents we're going to have here in 10 years inside of that.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what Gary Keller did with Keller Williams.
Yeah.
It's the most fascinating thing to watch. And so let's continue on. So with this leadership development agency, we're going to talk about some of the things that we have here at Factum that directly tie into helping our agents develop into better leaders now and in the future. And one of them is focus on success.
Yeah.
So focus on success is a coaching call we do every Monday with our team. And it's led by a number of different individuals. And the primary focus of what we go over on this 90-minute coaching call every Monday is we talk heavily about leadership, first and foremost. So how to lead an actual intentional life with abundance in those 5 areas.
Well, you missed the most important thing. What do we always start with? Gratitude.
We always start with gratitude.
And and when we first started doing that, when Steve would do that, I'm like, oh man, that's a little hokey. And then once you get into it and the feeling you get from doing it, it changes your mindset for the rest of the conversation, right? So it opens everybody up. So I know it seems small, but it was huge because that kind of changed my whole, when I first got on board, you were already doing Focus on Success with Steve. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, yeah, okay, it's gratitude things and a thank you note or who you're grateful for and then why. But once you start doing that, it changes your mindset. So that's a big cultural difference that a lot of places don't embrace or appreciate.
Yeah. And we're going to have Steve Chater on this podcast many times. He's on the list. He's one of the top leaders at Keller Williams. Been a phenomenal mentor for me, coach, for all of us here at Factum. And we're super lucky that he's willing to spend some time with our group, because if there's someone that knows that Keller Williams type community, it's that guy. Yeah. He was around when Keller Williams, he might not like that I said that because that makes him sound old, but he was old. He's wise. That's why he was around when they had 2,500 agents and they have over 200,000 right now. Yeah. Imagine what the things he has seen. I love spending time with him, going to lunch, because what you learn from someone that's seen an industry change like that is exactly what we're going to do for the life insurance realm. And so Steve is one of our coaches that teaches on that Focus on Success call, which is heavily geared around leadership. We also talk a lot about business development, how to set proper goals, how to understand the numbers in your business. Do you even have metrics? Do you understand that you're going to hit certain points in your business where you're going to feel like you're burnt out? And it's because you've consumed all your natural ability, and you have to shift that now into what's intentional. There's an entire business development conversation that's happening on our Focus on Success calls. We also pull up our cash flow dashboard, and we cover once a month with all of our agents a different piece of our wealth pyramid and how to upgrade their wealth scorecard so that they become wealthy over time. Oh. That's another big one there. We also talk about our win by noon habits. Yeah. So Todd Bookspan, who we'll have on the call, these are our win by noon binders. If you're watching this on YouTube or something, this is 5 years ago, Monty and I developed a signature contacting method. 15 things that a brand new agent should be doing every day. This is your one thing. You got to do this first thing in the morning. And it took us a couple years, but when Monty and I looked back after 24 months, we realized we were both making about $250,000 in this business, doing a few things every single morning. And we took that and we built it into Todd Bookspan's Win by Noon binder and strategy, which is another key component that we teach here at Factum with Todd Bookspan. And if you haven't met Todd, he owns a top producing nationwide mortgage company. But the conversation is so similar to our industry, which is why we built a version of what he built for the mortgage industry, just for life insurance agents. And so you do what we call our Factum 15 every day before noon, and you commit to that for 24 months. Guess what you're going to have? A lot of success.
That's the compound effect, right?
That's it.
It goes back to, I look at it and when I'm implementing those ideas, it's like in my mind, I'm thinking I need to replace some, I don't call them bad habits. I need to replace non-productive habits with very productive habits. And do I see instant results from it? Absolutely not. No instant results. Do I see results in 30 days? Maybe a little bit. But after a year, it was like, now it's become habitual and you're doing it. And then all of a sudden people are reaching out to you. And how is this happening? What's changed? What's the difference from a year ago to this? Is, the fact I've contacted, I've found out what my gratitude is. What's the 5 areas that I really appreciate and I want to have focus on today? And all of a sudden now it's just changing the mindset from a very early part of your day.
Yeah.
And it's just small changes. It's really nothing more than just having small changes.
Yeah. You can contact effectively and intentionally for 2 to 3 hours a day and make $250,000 in this business. But you got to focus on your one thing, and you got to do it for a long enough time period. And if you can just stay there, this business is remarkably simple.
Right.
But new agents, I would say, tend to overcomplicate it. And so the last thing that we focus on our Focus on Success coaching calls on Monday is life insurance education. Yeah. Isn't that funny? We got leadership, business development, becoming wealthy, win by noon habits. And the last thing on the list is life insurance education. But here we are. We're a life insurance company, aren't we, Wade? Wrong.
Well, we're a leadership company.
We're a leadership development company that sells life insurance. And this is why when I'm interviewing new agents and they are saying, hey, you guys have leads, I need deals. And I'm like, well, do you even know how to run a business yet? Maybe we should show you how to build a database, how to build a foundation here. let's get you some habits that are actually going to help you scale and scale every year so you don't burn out and you're part of the 80% that don't make it in this business in 24 months.
It goes back to a little book I read where it talked about, do I bring people fish or do I teach how to fish, right?
That's a great analogy.
Yeah. So our intent is teaching you how to fish is way more important, because by doing that, when we talked about this earlier today, Kyle and I did, and we were talking about when you empower people to not be dependent, because dependent breeds that when I bring you something and I give it to you without you having to go and create it yourself, then all of a sudden the next time it happens, and now you've become a servant of me, versus me showing you the process, empowering you to do that. Now that doesn't always come easy because you're hungry, and so you want to eat. In the long run, again, having a long-term focus, understanding how to go out and take care of yourself and how to go out and catch those fish is way more important than that one singular fish that's going to be on your table.
Yeah. We're here for long-term results.
Yeah, exactly.
We want to show you how to actually scale and run a business. So the next piece that we focus on to develop leaders is our actual training and coaching. So our focus on success, that's open to all agents. We expect them all to be there on the call, cameras on.
Participation.
It's not something you're driving around. People would pay $10,000 to go to a seminar to hear the stuff we're teaching about on our Monday calls. Yeah. Be attentive, tie in, cameras on is the way we do it. Next is we have our launch and stability training. So 2 different levels of training geared for 2 different types of agents. Launch is our signature training that's built for brand new agents. That happens once a week. And we've got a 12-week program that if you go through that, you will absolutely have success if you do everything we're telling you to do in those 12 weeks. And your first 12 weeks of this business are so vital because it sets up your first 12 months of the business.
Right. You
got to start off on the right foot. And so that's a training we do once a week. And then Wade and I, we teach a stability class to agents selling anywhere from $100,000 to $250,000 a year. We do that class, which we call our stability coaching or training. And we do that one every other week, so twice a month. And that is a conversation heavily geared around leverage, how to leverage all the systems and processes we have here. So you have better follow-up, better ongoing education, less time involved because we have a lot of resources that agents can use here. And so that whole conversation is meant to empower you to create more abundance through leverage.
Right. And it's also empowers you to have greater relationships with your clients. It's almost like a side effect, but it is a direct effect, I believe. If we're following up, if we're doing the things, and I'm going to have a very focused conversation with you. If you're my client, Kyle, I'm going to have a very focused conversation with you. I've given you what's going to happen in advance and the material, and then we get on a call and we have a 15-minute call and it's very focused. That's what you want, right? Yeah. You go meet with my next client for 15 minutes. Instead of me spending if I think about it from the standpoint of if I'm not using leverage and I'm spending an hour and a half conversation with, not that I don't want to have a conversation with all my clients, but they're busy as well. They're like, hey, I need to get some business done. I want to have a relationship with you. So let's give you what you need to have to educate yourself, to empower you. And then when we get on the phone together, we can talk about how is this going to change your family's life.
And that's the key word. The same way we coach and train to empower agents, we also coach and train our clients to empower them.
Right.
People will say to me, oh, you're like a financial advisor. I say, absolutely not. I'm the exact opposite of a financial advisor. I'm actually educating and teaching my clients to think for themselves. I don't want them to bottleneck at me and say, what do we do, Kyle? I want to give them the tools and the resources and the education so they can learn to think for themselves. Yeah. And as soon as they understand the foundational stuff that we teach, and they go into the investment realm based off our philosophies, which is so infinite, people shouldn't be investing in things that are unique to their advantages in life. And that's a question I cannot come up for them. You have different deals than I do because we have completely different lives and strategies. And I have to get my clients to be able to think so that they can make decisions that are based off what's best for them. Yeah. And the reason that's so important is because when the parents get there, the kids absorb it too. I don't want to be dependent on one person to say, here's my money. Not that it's bad to be in what we call typical financial planning. I just don't want to have any part of that. Right. Like it doesn't fit who I am, what I want to do. I want to help people reach their max potential. And I can't do that if I'm their bottleneck for success.
Yeah, if you're the gatekeeper, if you hold the key to all their answers, then what if you've just taken the position that maybe the bank was in, and now you've put yourself in that position, right? So it's no better. They're in no better shape than they were before that. Instead of Wells Fargo being the gatekeeper, now Kyle's the gatekeeper. Or if we educate them and empower them, now they don't have a gatekeeper. They are their own gatekeeper. They can make their own decisions, and because they're educated and they're wise about where they need to go.
So if I'm the gatekeeper, is that scalable, Wade?
Absolutely not.
Maybe to about a couple hundred clients.
Right.
And then you're going to be in a world of hurt with this business, which is why we coach and train a certain way.
Yep.
I want thousands of clients all thinking for themselves, which is why we built our courses and everything else. And so that is pretty much what encompasses our launch and stability training. So they're developing at every level. Now, we won't go into the Thrive training on this podcast. We'll save that for another one. But that's for agents who want to build like a really big business, $1 million plus. You're going to need a team to do that. We'll go into that on a different podcast. The next thing we do every single year are our live agent masterminds.
Yeah.
We talk about community and the relationships being so important. This is why live events are so critical. And we do 2 of them a year.
Yeah. We have to develop our business in a couple different ways, right? So it's you work in the business or you work on the business, right? So we understand that those are both very important. So we've separated them out, and we're like working on the business. We talk about all the different things about. I love some of the things that we talk about. We're just putting together the agenda for our current one that we're putting on. It's going back and talk about their profit and loss statement. What are they doing? What are they spending their money on? Again, it's not us telling them what to do, but it's just getting them aware so they go, oh, well, I shouldn't be spending money on that, or we should be a lot more efficient with our dollars. Because if you can be as efficient as you possibly can with your dollars, then it's a lot more rewarding. But the other side of the equation is now you can speak to your clients with authority because you've gone through that and you've done the same things, right? The wealth scorecard, same thing. How are we increasing our financial IQ? Those are all things about running a business, because we are in business. It's not self-employed. Again, we want to take you from that self-employed to running a business.
We start with the end in mind, which means we have to have a different conversation as early as possible. Yeah. So we usually do what we call our spring mastermind. We usually do it out at One America at the home office carrier. I think it's important for agents to see the company we're representing, meet some of the home office staff. And that's our training. We usually do around April, and it's very product and industry related.
Yep.
So anything life insurance, riders, whatever it is, all life insurance related, that is a product and industry intensive focused mastermind. Right. And the one we do in our fall, which is our fall mastermind, that one's coming up. We usually do it every September here in Arizona. That is everything on the business. Know your business from the ground up. Your financials, how to grow, how to scale, how to leverage the systems and process, how to hire killers in this business. We go over all of it at that training. But more importantly, what does it do? It gets our community together, and that's where all the magic happens. Yep. When people are there saying, what are you doing? What am I doing? Ooh, here's the new thing that Spactum's releasing now, because we're always focused on innovation. We release a new project we've been working on basically every 6 months.
You have to focus on your industry. You have to become a master craftsman in your industry. And part of that is sharpening the tools. And part of sharpening your tools is going to your carrier that you represent, right? So we have a great relationship with One America. So I want to know everything there is to know about. I was just listening to their chief financial officer and their chief investment officer. How important is that to have access to people like that? And so they're coming in a room that's have just for us to tell us what they're doing, fielding questions. What are your concerns? What are your clients hearing? Having access to that at that level with a large multi-billion-dollar company is huge, right? So you're working and understanding you're becoming a craftsman with your tools. You're understanding what your tool is. That's part of it.
You have to know the products and the process in this business. You got to understand why what we do is so important for families. Yeah. That's why you got to know the product side and the industry side. But just as important, if not equally important, is how to run an actual business.
Right.
You could have all the education in the world, have no idea how to grow and scale, and be out of business in 24 months.
Yeah, you think about the responsibility we take on. When we take on clients, we have a huge responsibility to be here for the next 20, 30, 50 years. Mm-hmm. Think about that. So if you can't put together a business plan and a business idea that, how am I going to be here 10 years from now? How am I going to be here 20 years from now? Are you being good servants to your clients?
Right.
And so that's where our passion comes in too, is that we want you to be uber successful as a business person, as well as knowing the life insurance business or life insurance products. Because there's a lot of people that know products that are out of the business because they couldn't control expenses. They don't even know what expenses were. They're just like, man, I worked really hard. I made a lot of money, but I had nothing to show at the end of the day.
Well, and going back to those stats, 4 out of 5 agents fail in their first 24 months. It's not all because they didn't have enough leads or education. but it's a combination of everything, right?
100%.
Because they could have had great deal flow and leads coming in, but they had no idea how to manage their books or profit and loss, so they ran themselves into the ground. Or you get to that point and all you have done is now owned a job.
Right.
So you got to start from the beginning with the right systems and processes, so you continually scale and you continually compound.
And that's one of the things where when we came together, Kyle, that was one of the things that really drew me here, is like, we have a process to talk about how to run a successful business. No conversations about life insurance. It's how to run a successful business. Because it frustrated me being in the business 30 years and hearing people all the time, oh, here's a person they sold me policies and now they're gone. And nobody's there to service them.
Right.
So I'm servicing a huge book of business because all these agents had no plan for success.
They had to abandon their book because they had no one they were coaching or mentoring,
right,
that could take it over.
Or nobody to show them how to stay in business for the next 50 years.
Right.
And that was probably the biggest thing, is that, man, there's just a need to show people how to start a business, grow a business, be successful in that business, and treat it as a business. Because if you read Nelson Nash's book, he talks about the grocery store. You have to understand and know how a grocery store runs before you start it. And then once you start it and run it, you have to be honest with it.
Yeah.
That's the same thing with this business.
That's a great point. That's exactly what we're doing.
Yeah.
And I would say the last thing before we wrap this up is there's other infinite opportunities for growth and leadership here. We have a lot of our agents now that are teaching what we call our foundational and deep dive events. These are classes we teach every other week and once a month to our entire client database on just reinforcing some of the principles, going deep on topics, policy loans, what to use, how to create a family banking business, all these things. Our agents are now leading a lot of those conversations, not only for their clients, but for other agents as well. It's a great leadership position. We have mentors here, agents that have developed so well that they help coach and mentor our other newer agents coming in, because if you don't have a mentor in this business, it might be your biggest mistake.
It is your biggest mistake.
Everyone should have a mentor. We have guys and gals that are becoming team leaders, that they're growing individual teams, basically an agency within an agency, right? That's what they're doing. We have an entire leadership team that works on the back end in the business with us: policy, services, systems and processes, innovation, operations,
application submission, all that. Right.
It's all there. And then lastly, coaching opportunities. We have people that want to teach to everyone just on a coaching level. I have a certain expertise. There's compensation involved if we teach these other agents how to be successful in business with wealth, how to be a more effective communicator, whatever it is.
Right.
And so you think about that, the opportunity that exists here, just being an agent, but everything else that we have that exists that helps our agents develop into better leaders now and in the future. And
it goes back to, I love the idea that we have agents that teach to the entire database, to all our clients. Mm-hmm. I mean, think about the community we've created there. That to me is fabulous. If you're brand new, you can plug into it. If you're seasoned, I'm like, hey, here's a story from David, or here's a story from Trissa. It's the same story that I'm telling, but maybe it resonates with somebody else just a little bit differently. But they're willing to give of their time.
Yeah.
And why not? I mean, that's a tremendous community of giving, of that go-giver again.
And it's part of one of our guiding principles that infinite thinking. Yeah. Like, I want my clients exposed to some of the other minds we have here at Factum that are more analytical than mine. There's always something new to learn. Always. And this is why you got to come to our wealth seminars, the live community that's there. You just get such a different perspective when you're sitting with people chatting about, what are you doing, Wade? What am I doing? That's really interesting. I didn't think about that. But from a client to client perspective, even, this is why we do live wealth seminars, our agent masterminds, because when you have a group of people talking and everyone's sharing ideas, that's where all the magic gets to happen.
Yeah, I always say that if you want just the content, you can watch the recording, but the real magic in all these happens out in the hallways.
Where the relationships are built.
Where the relationships are built. You're talking about stuff that's not even on the agenda, but you connected with somebody through a great relationship, and now you're talking about something you have in common that you or I, as presenters at a wealth seminar or at a mastermind, aren't talking. It's not on our agenda, but now you've created a relationship and you start having a conversation. And what I find the interesting part is there might be one person that's having a conversation with you, or you and I are having a conversation. Also, we got 5 people around us because they're interested in hearing the same thing. But again, we didn't have it from the stage of the platform. The live events are so valuable because there's so much more that's happening over lunch or in the hallways that that we can't even imagine. That's why it's so infinite.
Right. I love it.
Yeah.
So good. If you enjoyed this podcast episode today, make sure you subscribe and also check out our website, factumfinancial.com, to learn how to become an agent and join our mission.
If you're enjoying this podcast or know anyone else that might be interested, please be sure to hit the subscribe button and please leave a review. This will help this podcast reach and help more people by ranking higher in searches and ultimately help more people get out of financial bondage. And don't be afraid to share this podcast with your friends and family, as we can be easily found on Apple Podcasts and Spotify.